Auzubillahi Minash-Shaytanir-Rajeem. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Faiza Naqvi in your own show Meri, Pehchan, and in today's show we will discuss about a recent event happened in London in UK, where the auction of the soil of dust of Imam Hussain alayhi salam was took place. So we need to see how our youth responded, our ulmas and our community responded to that event, and what kind of insight we should have in such during such events and during such incidents when they happen or before they happen. So as Imam Khomeini Rahmatullah alayh says that our youth should have a deeply religious and political outlook, so they don't slip up with any kind of falsehood or any kind of fitna around them, and mostly what are the things which happens are because of lack of insight and lack of misunderstanding and misunderstanding and lack of kind of when they don't understand that what is supposed to happen and what is not. Some people are confused and some are completely aware in such events, in such timings. So we need to see what is the right opinion we should hold during such timings, and what stand we can take, and what our ulama says on that. And on that point we have very wonderful guests with us, and they will be giving us a good they will be giving us some information about that and how they respond to that. We'll move on to our guest, Molana Ali Mohsin Naqvi from Iran, and brother Raza Kazim from London, who is spokesperson from IHRC. Welcome to you, and very welcome to you both, and thank you so much for joining in. Malana, first of all, I would move on to you. How would you react to such event that happened in previous, you can say, month, in this month, regarding the selling of soil of Imam Hussain al Islam? Is that religiously right and right thing to be done, or how do you see it?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, on the occasion of the month of Sha'ban, and it is the month of Ramadan is coming, so many congratulations on having these 2 months, and may Allah give us the tawfiq to benefit out of the month of Ramadan in its best way, inshallah. The event which happened last week or a couple of weeks ago, which was the auction of some of the tabarrukat, especially the soil of the Karbala, the land of Karbala, or the dust of the land of Karbala, which we generally know as Torba of Karbala. We have a couple of narrations in regards to that. Before I enter to those narrations, because the narrations are za'if, we can say these are the weak narrations that we have, that whoever sells the soil of Karbala, he is known as the person who is selling the flesh of the Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, or the body parts of Imam Hussain. So before I get into that, I want to recite a verse from the Quran. In the Quran, we have the verse, وَمَن يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Whoever respects the sha'air Allah, the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Therefore, in these signs, in this respect, there is a taqwa of qulub. There is the piousness of the qulub. And this is what we have in the Quran. Why we respect the land of Karbala, why we respect Imam Hussain alayhi salam, why we go for Hajj, respecting the Maqam Safa and Marwa and all those, because these all are the sha'air Allah. The action itself, when you ask a mujtahid, maybe like from the jurisprudence point of view, juristic point of view, it might not be haram to do so. It might be makruh, because when you ask a mujtahid about something, that can I put the soil of Karbala as an option, the answer is from the ahadith and the Quran. We see fi nafsihi la ishkal. They say, like, in this action in itself, there is nothing wrong. But the point is, when they say fi nafsihi, there is a condition, like in this action. It means that if it does not harm the the a society, a culture, it is not against or the of Sharia. But if it is against this, if any action like this, if it is against such thing, then obviously it is not allowable. The question is, today we are talking about the dust of the Kalbara, which was put on auction. What if someone puts the dress of Imam Hussein? What if it was the cloth of Imam Hussein, or the sword of Imam Hussein? Can we still do that or not? Now here we go towards the social aspect of the things, because one action can be individually allowed by the fuqaha, because in the auction they said this before, that it is allowed by fuqaha. So they made the right point. This is not wrong. We need to accept it. But that is for the individual. On the individual aspect, when someone is doing that, okay, that's fine. That might be allowed. But when we look at its social aspect, for example, we have the Indo-Pak culture in the mourning of Imam Hussein, the Arab culture, the Iranian culture. When we go into those cultures, we see that the Sha'air Allah, the dust of Karbala is Sha'air Allah. It is the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In many narrations, it is said to go and visit the land of Karbala. Why? Because there is a lesson in it. So when we look at the action itself socially and its impacts on the society, it has negative impacts. And this is the first time I think this thing has happened in the history. I will inshallah talk more about the group who has organized the channel on all those things, because we also have issues with them, because they're not clear. They do not have the green light from the majority of the fuqaha. So there is another issue with that. But as far as it is concerned, obviously, because it harmed the feelings of the mu'mineen, and this is a kind of thing that in urf we say, like in general public or urf, that generally what people preserve, they know it as something which is insulting. And when urf or the general public in the fiqh says that it is something which is harming the feelings of the people, then obviously it is not allowed to do so.
Mhm. Brother Reza Kazim, I would ask your response, like how you feel about it, and what would be the response of IHRC if, as a spokesperson of Islamic, Human Rights Commission. So, how do you see that event, and how do you see that act?
I think Molana, I'll leave the theological points that Molana has made, and I think obviously that references are there and grounded in fiqh and etc. I think the issue is around the way that the event was actually conducted and the person who was conducting the event, and also the way the TV station has actually allowed this particular individual, Amar Naqshwani, to actually conduct his shows in the manner that he has conducted them. And I think what we need to recognize is that there has been very little challenge made to what's actually being done. If you look at I mean, one of the things that Amar Naqshwani seems to be thriving on is this idea of being controversial. He says that if you see the clips that are going around, he's very proud of the fact that he's being very controversial. But when we look at the content of what he's saying, in terms of exposure to that kind of stuff within the culture of the UK, it's nothing that one would say was different from what goes on out there. What he is trying to do and what he has done is brought that culture into what is being deemed as a religious space, okay, or as being deemed as a Muslim space or as an Islamic space. So when you're talking about Imam Hussain TV, you're talking about a very noble personality and so on and so forth. And he's brought that vulgarity, obscenities, and a way of discussing things that is completely unacceptable uh, into that kind of space, into that place. And I think when you do that, that becomes a problem. And it's something that needs to be challenged because Imam Hussain TV should not be used for that kind of space, because it is selling itself, it is marketing itself as something that is religious, it is aligned to a particular way of thinking.
Mm. Brother Kazim, I
Places.
can't. Yeah, your voice was gone, so now it's fine. Yeah, continue.
Okay, so he is doing that in terms of the what he said on the day. Okay, in terms of the stuff that was being said by him from the stage, and I think that becomes something that is problematic. The content of what he was actually saying, and the fact that we were talking in a gathering which would be, classified that those kind of things would not be discussed in that way, in that kind of context. And I think those are the kind of problems that we have. That he's bringing the a culture, and he's violating the space, the religious space, our religious space, and the community's religious space by the obscenities, vulgarities, and so on and so forth that exist, that are considered commonplace within the UK, and are not necessarily, may not necessarily be seen as a problem in there, but he is deliberately um, juxtaposing them and bringing them in to this particular place and saying that this is okay, and he's normalizing that. So when you start to normalize that, what you're doing is changing the culture, you're changing the values that people will have and what they will actually hold on to, and saying in particular to people, to everyone out there, that it's perfectly okay. So then the issue becomes challenging for us as a community, in particular as a faith community, about what we think is acceptable. So what we're not talking about what individuals may or may not be doing. It's about what's being normalized as acceptable, as correct, and as right way of conducting things within our culture. So when I say, or within our religious space, and I think that's important to keep in mind. So when you change the culture, you're impacting on the
I'll
religious.
come back to you, brother Raza, and I will ask Molana on that point. Like, how do you see, like, what kind of things, from this fitna, or you can say that these things are like creating a kind of fitna. So, how do you see that, and what do you think our community should understand, and what actions they should be taking?
Well, when we look at the group who was organizing this auction, and especially the owner of the TV channel, obviously, these are some people who have who are not green in the eyes of the, we can say, who are not on the, amongst the fuqaha, they don't think them as a positive factor. And we know that they have been backed by some of the governments which are istimar. And there was no need of such an auction. But on the other hand, we need to see, as the brother has mentioned, there are some values that we have. And when we have these values, obviously, we need to look at the values first. And then we need to see that if someone tries to come and he tries to merge a Western, we can say, like values, or something which is in that culture into a normal culture, which is the Islamic culture, then this is not right. Because I have said this many times to the people I know where I go for the preaching, and obviously desiring when they come and visit. I said, in Islam, we don't have American Muslim or British Muslim. The thing which they have done is that they were trying to bring up the British Muslims in the whole Muslim community. We all are Muslims as one. In Islam, we don't have boundaries as an American Muslim, or maybe the British Muslim or Pakistani Muslims. The same thing happened to the people living in America, and they become like American Muslims. So they differentiate themselves from the rest of the Islam by saying that we are American Muslim, we are secular. Islam is the complete set of life. It gives the whole, rulings and everything about the life what you need. Therefore, there is no need of such things. And if someone is trying to do that, it can be. done by the enemies as well, the enemies of Islam, because every time they try to do something, and they basically they're checking the level of sensitivity of the Muslims. For example, when they burn the Quran, they want to see that in which countries do we get the reaction, and the place where they do not get any reaction, so they exceed their actions over there. But on the other hand, where they have this strong reaction upon what they have done, obviously they hold themselves back for some time. Similarly, in UK, if today we do not talk about this, if we do not condemn such an action, it will be normalized. Tomorrow someone else will come and will put something else on auction. Maybe someone else with another tabarrukat or anything, and they say like it is normal. Why? Because the sensitivity which we need to show, and which we are fortunately which we are showing right now, and we are talking and on all the channels, and even in the groups and Facebook and everywhere people are talking about these things. This is good, and we need to strongly condemn such actions, because this means that you're changing your culture, you're bringing a non-Islamic culture into Islam, which is totally against the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ and the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. Because the hard working which was done by the Prophet, by Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam, and the Imam of the time, who's waiting to have the reappearance, if we do not stop such an actions, the reappearance will be delayed. So we need to pay our role in this, and obviously we need to strongly condemn such actions, and not to let them become something which is something ordinary for us, as there are many things in the West which has become ordinary.
Brother Raza, I would ask you like how we can stand against such things which are like kind of safe way of condemning such things and preserving our values. Like for example, if we say like our ulmas from UK, Europe, they should give a proper response to such things. And how do you see that? Like what kind of response they had, and how do you see that?
I think the response needs to be very wide ranging. It needs to include, absolutely, as you point out, the Molanas within the UK to actually say that this is something that is not acceptable. But condemning isn't enough. I think it needs to be further than that. I think there should be a complete kind of thinking, okay, how can we stop someone like this speaking at any center in the UK? Okay, and I think that's something that people need to think about going to do. That do they really think the vulgarity, the obscenities, and so on that were brought into the to be normalized within our culture, our values, is acceptable? And if it is not acceptable, then that person should be stopped. And it's not something that has been done just once or twice and someone's made a mistake and so on. This has been a systematic trend from that individual for quite some time. I mean, not only he's going into this area, but he's going into this area because there are other things that he has also done. That the idea of having the political concept of Zionism being normalized and being talked about within our Islamic centers in the UK is something okay, and under the guise of interfaith is something that he has done. He has promoted. There is a program of which is called the Prevent Duty within the UK, which is the securitization agenda of the British establishment. He has tried to normalize that center that he had. He was considered a scholar in, or he is considered a scholar in at the time. So it's a systematic thing that has been done, in which he is involved, in which a lot of the issues that are problematic for us are being gradually normalized within one particular center. This is one of those things that has been done over a period of time. And people should also be thinking that, is it okay for someone like that to be considered a resident scholar when he has no religious qualifications, credentials in that sense, and leading people in this way down a path which is going to be problematic in terms of the religion and so on. So I think there needs to be a strong response from the centre that is within the UK, that is actually has employed him in that capacity. There should be total condemnation of Imam Hussain TV, and not allowing a channel like that to actually propagate the kind of things that have been propagated, and actually complaining and about what is being said, um, through the structures that are there through Ofcom, etc., to actually do that. So I think there is a range of actions that people need to take, and the alternative is going to be quite grim, because if you allow this to
We
actually
have
happen.
a caller, brother Raza. Just one second. We should take a view from. Assalamu alaikum. Who is calling? Where are you from? And what we would like to.
मेरा ना my name is Hussain. I am coming from London.
Mm-hmm. What you would like to share, brother?
I want to just want to tell about what happened in auction.
Mm-hmm.
So can I speak about it?
You can ask any question if you have from Molana and brother Raza. If you have any question in specific, you can ask the question which is relevant.
नहीं मेरा क्वेश्चन नहीं है मेरा इस बात पे अपनी राय जाहिर करने का.
Okay.
So you will allow me.
You can share your viewpoint, so it's not necessary that we agree or not, but you can share a little bit.
Yeah, that is if anybody agree or not.
Okay, brother, go on.
Hello. Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, we can hear you.
Alaikum salam.
Everyone is listening, so you can move on to the point.
I am like sorry what happened in auction.
Yeah.
In this world, nobody has authority to make the value of Khaki Shafa.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has in this world
Mm-hmm.
to make value of Khaki Shafa. If anybody, if a Jews can buy, what you will say? It is not for auction.
Mm-hmm.
It is very bad.
Okay.
Khaki Shafa very. No, we can't judge their value. Hey, Imam, belong to Imam. How you can judge the value of our Khaki Shafa, Abe Zamzam? What is the matter? You are going to value these things. It is very bad. Can you convey this message?
Yeah, we have got your message. Thank you so much, brother, for joining in. Agam, I would ask you
I
how.
can't talk openly on this one.
Yeah. So, Aga Mohsin, I would ask you the question: how we can educate our youth in terms of like future, like how we can help them and guide them properly that they don't confuse themselves in certain things, certain fitnas around us, because it's very important for our youth to understand, especially that they don't indulge in such activities or they don't confuse them with other things. So, how would you respond to that? What is our responsibility in that?
Well, I generally distribute it into different phases. The one phase is the centers itself in the UK and the US, wherever our youth are. The second phase is our parents, and then it is the ulama, and most important phase is the media. So in every phase, we need to talk about different levels of their participation. First of all, the centers should not invite people who are not, we can say, they do not have the capacity of being a khatib or telling the true Islam. Like they do not have that capacity. Maybe they do not have the qualification, but the centers, they call them because they are good khutaba. They can speak well. The person we're talking about him, why he became famous, because he's a good speaker. So being a good speaker is not the criteria. The criteria is the taqwa and ilm. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. And this is what we had in the Hausa, and today we have this. The problems that we see in the society is because everyone who have the ability of speaking, they come and become a speaker, and we just allow them because people love them and all these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says that the criteria of knowing that someone is right or wrong is not the kasra. It is not the number of people. It can be like a small number of people there, but they can be on the haq, and the most of the people they are on the wrong side. So this is the first thing which the centers need to do. And I remember that in 2006, 2007, the centers in the UK they banned the Nuseris from entering into the centers. I remember that because I was that time in London. And obviously they all get gathered into Northampton, and they have their center there right now. But this was something which was conducted, this was a step which was taken by the centers. So the centers need to take further steps in order to make reformations into the system itself. The second thing is parents. Our parents need to take their kids from when they're a child to the mosques and the centers. They need to get connected, because when you're not connected and you just go in the month of Muharram, they can make different friends which they even don't know, or maybe through YouTube or the channels of Facebook or Instagram, they have their own friends. The parents also need to be educated. They need to educate themselves. Our main issue in the West is that the parents are not educated, and they expect Molanas or some people who are more active in the centers to make their kids religious. This cannot happen unless our parents are not educated and they're not educating themselves. On the other hand, it is the duty of families, which I emphasize a lot to my students as well, and the people as well, that do read maqatil, do read books, and especially the books which is related to Muharram, because the thing that happened on that day in the auction, it did not give a single message about the shahadat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. There was nothing about that. Why Imam Hussain alayhi salam sacrificed himself, his whole family, and why the Ahlul Bayt got captive, there was nothing about it. Yes, there was a noha, there was a kind of other things, but the mission of Imam Hussain, where is that? Did Imam Hussain sacrifice himself so that tomorrow you can sell his dust, which is, we said, like the land of Karbala is mutabarak, it is from Sha'air Allah, to put that in auction and you can get your personal desires out of it? No, this is not the thing for which Imam Hussain has sacrificed himself. So we need to get closer to this. On the other hand, it is the duty of scholars that whenever they see such things, they need to condemn. In the Jummah prayers, maybe in the Friday prayers that we have sermons, or maybe in the Muharram, the month of Ramadan is coming. So we're going to have some people invited to different centers. So they need to basically talk about these issues and bring people closer to the actual mission of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam. This is important. And the last thing is media. Obviously, you're paying your role. You're doing your job. This is good, but more, because recently the Supreme Leader, we need to do the jihad. Is jihad. What does it mean? It means that the wrong picture of Islam is being shown to the world. I've seen the picture of Shia is to is the
I
of
can't hear
scholars.
you
People
properly in
are
the last
active.
point, especially. If you can repeat your last point, because I couldn't hear you properly, your voice was distorting.
I said in the Tabyin, obviously the explanatory jihad, which was emphasized by the Supreme Leader, is in the world we see that the wrong picture of Islam and the wrong picture of the Shia is being shown to the world. What we have seen in the auction was not the real picture of Islam. This is not the cause of Islam. This is not the cause of Imam Hussain. And who needs to make this right? Obviously, this is the duty of everyone. It is the duty of the media people, media persons. It is the duty of those who are active in social medias. of the ulama, of the parents, of the youth, of the activists who are active in different parts of the world. They have to show the right picture. But obviously, we cannot show the right picture unless we do not know the right picture. And in order to know that, we need to educate ourselves. Our biggest issue is jahala. It is not knowing about the right thing. And we never go towards that. We have gone towards the short clips, maybe, or someone who can, make us happy through his speeches and all those things. These are the criteria that we have. Therefore, we need to have a strategy, a strong strategy, and everyone needs to play their role in this. Everybody needs to have some part. They need to basically play some parts in it. And if we do not do that, we cannot inform our youth. We cannot change our youth. We cannot tell them about the right and wrong.
Yeah. Brother Raza, I just want to know, like Molana said, like how we can develop a right critical thinking mindset among the youth and the parents, and steps we can take to avoid such things in future, so that we can prepare our youth. I mean, ahead, like they can, face these things, logically and intellectually. They are grown ups, and they can, understand what is going on and what is right and what is wrong. Obviously, it's not that simple, but obviously, what strategies do you think we can opt in that sense?
I think, as Molana has said, it's got to be multifaceted. It can't be just one thing, or it can't be just one thing. It's a multi-layered thing. It's a multi-layered problem. But the point that you make about critical thinking and being able to think about those issues in a very critical way is important. And I think within that, the idea about linking what happened in Karbala with our situation today. That has to be something that is very that needs to be emphasized. That what is it that we are talking about? We need to get across the idea of leadership. That when we talk about this kind of thing, that how are we going to make sure that the children understand and the youth understand the leadership that needs to be thought about, and what makes a kind of like a good leader, what is actually being done in terms of linking what's happened yesterday to what's happened today. And part of that is something very fundamental. It's about standing for the oppressed against the oppressor. And we need to think about, is that something that's being done? All right. We need to think about and also listen to our Maraji when they talk about these things about making sure that we are united with all of our Muslim brothers and sisters. That is something that we, where Ayatollah Sistani actually says that there are nafs, then it's something that we really need to promote that idea. Imam Khomeini has said that, while you're arguing about whether you should pray with your hands to your side, or clasping your hands, or etc., your enemy is plotting to, chop off your arms and so on. And, those kind of things are very, very clearly laid out. And that idea of the bigger picture needs to be understood by our youth. And then when people like this person who was hosting the gala dinner actually come along and talk about creating fitna amongst yourselves, which is in direct contradiction to what the Maraji have actually said, then you need to actually take a step back and say, what is the purpose of this individual? He's not going to be prepared to take on the oppression. He's not going to call out the apartheid regime in West Asia that is oppressing the Palestinian people. He's not prepared to say the things that are being done in terms of oppressing the people. But what he is going to do is create fitna amongst those people that have the capacity, that have the religion, that have the ability to actually stand up against that oppression. And there are these clear markers that are out there. The Imam Hussain didn't stand up against a local difference that was there. He stood up to the Pharaoh of his time, Yazid at that time. And we need to recognize the Pharaohs of our time, the Yazids of our time, and actually say, okay, what, who are the people that are actually standing up against that? And what are they actually doing? And what does our role have to be within that? And if people come along that are following the agenda of the British establishment, of the American establishment, and doing something that is going to enhance those causes, enhance those agendas, then that is someone that you should not be taking in, however articulate they happen to be. And I think that's something that really needs to be understood by people, and by the youth and so on. And it is, ultimately on the day of judgment, you're going to be answerable for who you followed. You cannot be on the basis of, oh, we were only listening to our resident scholar. Well, if that resident scholar is going to take you in the wrong direction, then that's something that you need to, quite frankly, stand up and say, no, I'm not going to listen to that. And actually, I'm going to try and do something to change this within my center so that I've recognized this as a problem, and I want others to not be misled by an individual like that. And the responsibility for this lies on every one in the community, to make sure that this is something that is going to be challenged.
Do you think, Raza, that our community has that courage, to stand against such things and speak about it, or like everything which is going on and confusing the, I mean, majority of the people in community? So, do you think our people do have that mindset which can recognize such things, or do you think no, they are just kind of ritualistic and cultural sort of stuff they are doing, and that's it? I mean, because generally I don't find it, I mean, like they are like responding to such things in the way they should be, but obviously you might have a better idea of that.
I think it's something that is work in progress, okay, and it's something that people are looking at. I mean, if we look at the situation of Mazlum Karbala, of Imam Hussain, and where he was at, I mean, think about the number of people that were with him at that time, and the confusion that was actually there because of, and in order for that to happen, a lot of people would have had to take no action or do very little and stand back. And if we say, we make that pledge in Muharram, and we say that only if we were with you in Karbala on that day, we would have stood with you. And my question is to those people that say that and make those naras, make those slogans and so on, that do you really mean that? Could you actually do that? And if you could do that, then it is your responsibility to make sure that you take a stand against the Yazids of today, recognize the Yazids of today, recognize the Shimmers of today, and so on and so forth, and make sure that you're going to stand up against them. And that recognition, I think, exists. That recognition, the extent to which it exists is difficult to say, but it does exist. And it's a question of there are enough groups that are recognizing this. And the question is that, okay, how are we going to move forward in trying to implement so that our space that is being violated by people like this, who are trying to normalize the concept of Zionism within our community, who are trying to normalize the prevent agenda, the securitization agenda, and I'm talking within the UK context, within our communities, who are trying to normalize vulgarities and obscenities within our values and our culture, should be rejected. And I think that's something that needs to happen at every level. So, and I think that comes with people who understand, who know about this, to actually stand up and say so, and say that this is something that is not going to be tolerated, and we are going to stand up and we are going to make some noise and make things difficult, whether that's at a structural level where you target the TV station, whether it's at a communal level where you stop individuals of that type. Remember, it's not just one individual, although that's the focus at this moment, in that particular individual is the focus at this moment in time. It goes much further than that. And we need to think about making sure that, like Molana said, that we want to create a scenario where our Imam is going to feel that we are ready to accept him, to accept his leadership. If we haven't done the groundwork, he's not going to come. And if he's not going to, and so the groundwork needs to be done, and it's our responsibility to prepare the ground. When you've got all of these kind of things going on, the issue is, well, what's changed for him to actually be able to come? We need to change ourselves, our community, and our focus is limited. We're talking about our community, and when we say our community, we're talking about people from the subcontinent. We're talking about people from the countries of West Asia, Iraq, Iran, etc., and things of that type. We need to prepare this country for the coming of our Imam, right? And that means reaching out to people that are beyond the usual kind of suspects, if you like, if I can use that terminology, and actually go beyond that. And unless we are prepared to think about a strategy that is going to reach out to those people, then we're not going to prepare this country. We're a handful of people in the sense, in the kind of communities that are going to be looking at this channel and talking about this. Our vision needs to be greater in order for things to actually be ready for our Imam, as Molana has said.
Yeah. Malana, I would ask you the way Brother Raza said, like, who would give that vision, who would give that courage, and who would give that sense of responsibility to prepare everywhere we are? We have to prepare that place for Imam of our time. So, who will deliver that vision, and how we, as an individual, as a community, will take responsibility in a courageous manner, that we can like stand against all the upcoming fitnas of our time and prepare the place for Imam of our time. So what steps we should take, and what kind of standards we should keep in our understanding, that these are the standards, and if these things don't meet these standards, they are wrong, or maybe they are like deviating us from like our objectives, which are to serve Imam of our time.
Well, first of all, it is the duty of the ulama especially in the UK and in other countries as well, because we're talking about the UK right now. It is the duty of the ulama. Alhamdulillah, there are the groups of ulama who are active and they know each other. And most of the centers have good ulama. We cannot say like all the centers have people like what we have seen in that place. There are very few. So when the right ulamas are there, they are in connection with each other. Before the month of Ramadan, they have a session in the Islamic Center even. So these topics should be said over there. They should work more focusedly, because the point which Imam Khomeini has made, and unfortunately we couldn't apply that in other countries, was that when Imam Khomeini used to say something, it used to be spread amongst the people, and it was the ulama who used to spread it. Now, when we have the Jummah prayer, at least the Friday prayers, those ulama who are on the right like side, and they are really are talking about the pure Muhammad Islam, they all are connected to each other. At least every Friday they can choose the same topic, one topic to talk about. So imagine if in 10 centers, maybe 10 people are talking about one thing, and they're educating their people. You have in 10 different places of the UK, you have people ready, and they can spread. Obviously, people do communicate with their family members, their friends, with or in other places. So there are different steps which can be taken. So this is the first step. The second thing is it is the duty of the centers that we need to have the details of the center. They are doing good job, and those centers what they have done and how they're doing, and how can we apply the things which they have in the other centers. So the management of the centers as well, they have to make, we can say, like a kind of principle for them. They should have a principle or the set rule conditions that this person can, this person cannot. We don't have these things. We don't have these centers. Generally, the criteria is a person who's famous, who's popular. We should invite him in the month of Muharram, for example, or in the month of Ramadan. There are very few centers. Even in those centers, there are very few people who talk about the quality of knowledge, and they talk about the quality of the thing which is being delivered, which will be going to be delivered. So we need to have these criterias in our centers, and on top of that, obviously, in order to get together, there are many organizations who are already working in the UK. It's just they need to have more communication, and they need to come out of just meeting. There's another issue that we meet a lot, having meetings, sitting, but practical go towards the practical life. We in practical life. So we need basically this thing as well. There are many other. It needs to be done strategically. There should be some thinkers to sit and think about it, put some strategy, and then work on it. We can't say anything on the or anything like. There are different. I'm just giving ideas about these things. I cannot give a precise formula that you need to work according to this.
Thank you so much, Molana Ali Mohsin Naqvi and brother Raza Kazim, because we have come to the end of our show. It was honor to have you both and to have your viewpoint on the serious issue we have been discussing from past an hour. So thank you so much for joining in. And to all the viewers, I would just say that, as Molana said, that we need to take the responsibility, and we need to understand how to create that vision that can serve the community more effectively, and we need to instill that vision in our centers, and we need to create like a sensible, a visionary youth for our future, so that they can serve the Imam of our time. With this point of view, I will take a leave, and I hope you all will be doing well, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.